and how they interact with them.
That's not so bad.
Well, it's get worse. It's get worse.
Okay, sorry, I spoke too soon.
Yeah, in most ways, yeah, that's not so bad. But this goes beyond having an imaginary friend. Many of these people believe their creations are sentient beings that live in their subconscious and use lucid dreaming and meditation to interact with them. Many of these interactions are sexual in nature, which doesn't surprise me. There's a lot of roleplay involving these characters who refer to their creators as hosts. It was a lot creepier in the article.
Yikes.
There's a lot of IRL roleplay, and the article I read made that sound more like a mental health crisis than anything else. So yeah.
Well, I don't know who was writing said article. But I feel like that could, be like an outsider looking in. Maybe not taking the best of anthropological practices with them.
It was pretty well written. It seemed pretty accurate. But like in other news, the bronies aren't okay.
I never expect the bronies to be okay. But like, to me, it feels kind of like, when, like, furries became, like, a mainstream, like, thing that you could just reference, like, if it's not your thing, like, can you really talk about it?
It's different from furries.
Yes, it is different. I wasn't trying to imply that they were the same. I was just, remember, there used to be, like, a time when, like, no one knew what that was, and then all of a sudden everybody knew what that was, and it kind of became, like, a joke.
Trust me, this is very different from furries, and a little bit traumatizing.
It just feels like, like, that same kind of, like, an outsider is writing this. I'm assuming that this person isn't engaging in this.
Send you the article later. But to me, this seems like escapism, which I can relate to.
Yeah.
I use my own fantasy world to escape, but using fantasy to cope is fine, and it can lead to a lot of good things, but it shouldn't be the only thing you use.
Fair enough.
You run the risk of losing your grip on reality. And please just remember to take care of yourself offline, too.
Yes, that's a good thing to remember.
Please, try to meet people. Please try not to have your girlfriend as a weird, fox creature that you meet in your brain. Just take care of yourself.
Yes. The internet is good in doses, and you should really, really make sure you're experiencing more reality than internet time.
Before I end, I just want to touch on some of the symbols used in this episode. I did try to find some information on the Tibetan sigil used in the episode. Yeah, the one
that was actually, important.
Yeah, but nothing outside of popular culture came up, which is not surprising. But according to IMDb, the sigil is actually just a backwards letter in the Tibetan alphabet.
Okay, cool.
I didn't find the specific letter referenced, but I wouldn't put it past the makers of Supernatural to do something like that. It checks out.
I mean, yeah, but you get kind of close if you just flip a letter backwards. It's like...
Yeah, it's just not genuine, and it's kind of funny.
But anyway. It's kind of funny, though, the one that, means absolutely nothing is the one that they're like, this is the one that they thought meant nothing, but actually was really important to the plot. And then it's the one symbol in there that means absolutely nothing in the whole set.
When they initially walk into the house, Sam also points out an inverted cross and what he calls the sigil of sulfur. He's completely wrong.
Sammy, no.
Yeah, Sam. He says the inverted cross has been used by Satanists for centuries, and first of all, no. The inverted cross is actually St. Peter's cross, and it wasn't used by anti-Christians or Satanists until the 50s or 60s. Like the 1950s or 60s.
Sam says something to that effect as well, I think, though.
No, what he says is that the inverted cross has been used by Satanists for centuries, and he says that the sigil of sulfur started to get used in the 60s.
Okay. I'm he said something about something not being really popular until the 60s.
Yeah. I'm not entirely sure why people started using the inverted cross, but my instincts tell me there's probably some weird uninformed misinterpretation of what it means. That would make sense.
Yeah, I don't know where they come from either, but I do like one of the few horror franchises that I like is the Conjuring franchise.
Yeah. About
Ed and Lorraine Warren. I don't know how many times we're going to talk about Ed and Lorraine Warren on here, but one of the main through lines of that franchise is a demon called Valak. Usually Valak takes the shape of this demonic looking nun.
Oh yeah,
and
fun.
Turns crosses upside down, and so there's a lot of scenes in the Conjuring franchises of crosses slowly turning themselves upside down, and I really love how that looks. It looks so aesthetically good.
It's very creepy in context, but if you know what the symbol originally means, you're just this nun is really obsessed with the Pope.
But yeah, I don't know where that upside down cross being a symbol for evil came from.
It's an interesting thing that deserves more research, honestly. But the sigil of sulfur is also referenced, and the symbol that Sam points out is actually not it.
Oh no, they really did not do good this week with the research.
It looks more like a variation of the Jerusalem cross. I'm not an expert, so feel free to correct me. I just know that the sigil of sulfur looks very different. It's more like a double cross, and it's got like an infinity symbol on the bottom. It's also known as the Leviathan cross and was originally associated with alchemy, but has taken on some Satanist connotations throughout history. So, yeah.
Oh, I'm looking at the sigil of sulfur. Yeah, that's definitely not what we were seeing.
No. But in conclusion, tulpas are a Buddhist Tibetan concept that has been heavily westernized and recently used in fandom culture, and no one on Supernatural seems to know anything about actual symbols used in religions.
Yeah, I mean, the set designers do a really good job, but they don't know a lot of that stuff.
Yeah. I just feel like, it's kind of like getting your geography right on this show. Like, it kind of matters in some ways, so please just put a little more effort into it.
Yeah, I second that.
These are actual religions that are still really widely practiced.
Yeah.
It's not like you're just referencing some, like, dead religion from 4,000 years ago. Like, this is Buddhism and Christianity in this episode, and a lot of people still practice that.
Yeah, those are still two pretty popular religions worldwide. But yeah, that was all great.
Thank you.
Meredith, do you have a low light and a highlight for this week?
Highlight, probably the Ghostfacers, because they're funny.
Yeah, that's what they're later called. I don't know if we mentioned that or not.
Oh yeah, Ed and Harry, they're funny.
They later become known as the Ghostfacers. It was a little bit weird. It was actually a little bit jarring for me for them to have an episode where that's not like what they're just known as.
It's not what they're like chanting in the background.
Yeah.
Low light, stupid TV teenagers being stupid.
That's fair. Valid.
Guys, you're so frustrating. Just stay away from the abandoned building.
My low light is the pranks. Again, I don't like pranks. I don't feel, again, and I also just, I don't feel like John would have let them do this when they were kids. Like,
I don't think he would have been there when they were doing it.
Yeah, that's a good point. I had not thought about actually how much time John spent away from them.
Yeah.
I don't know. To me, it just sounds like some of the pranks they were pulling were more sophisticated, so they'd be older. And I don't know. I just kind of assumed that at that point once they were older, they were traveling with John a lot more.
Maybe.
But maybe it was just like only when Dad's not here. I just feel like in any case, if John came home and Sam lost all of his hair while he was gone, I feel like he would have beat the hell out of them.
They probably would have lied and said that Sam shaved his head.
Maybe. I don't know. Would John have even noticed? Sam was bald.
No.
I wish that they'd actually remembered this in some of the flashback episodes that we get, and like we had a bald Sam at one point, but
wearing a wig.
I'm sure there's a way to make them bald, but they were like shaving Colin Ford, or what's his name? It's Colin something. Colin F.
Oh shoot.
I always say Colin Ford, and that's not it.
No.
Definitely not it.
Usually I know this. It's Colin. Hello, Colin.
It is Colin Ford.
Oh.
Yes.
Yay. We did it. Good job, us.
Anyway, I don't know if they could have made him bald without having him like actually like cut his hair, because he has really nice hair.
He does.
He's a really good pick to play like a young version of Jared.
Yes.
But I would have liked that, just some continuity.
I think that's too much to ask from this show.
It's also a lot, because Colin like only does like an episode or two here and there. It's not like he's like on this show for any long period of time or anything like that. So like it's a lot for him to like change anything like fundamental about how he looks.
I just think continuity is too much to ask for from this show.
That's true. My highlight though is the Blue Oyster Cult of this episode. I really like Blue Oyster Cult, mostly like the big songs, Burning for You, Don't Fear the Reaper. I like those songs. I enjoy that they're in here. I enjoyed that there was also, I also enjoyed the Ghostbusters and the Exorcist. All the references this week were very good.
Oh yeah.
There was a lot of pop culture to be had. Mental health check. I'm not a psychologist. This segment is based purely on my own opinions, and a weekly reminder that if you're struggling with anything at all, please reach out for help. But this week actually felt pretty fine. I felt like this was a break, honestly, from me having to exhaust myself thinking about Sam or Dean's mental health.
They seemed to be having fun. They were doing like sibling stuff.
Again, I do feel like the pranking when they were kids would have hit that, like, conflicted with that, like, walking on eggshells phase of the cycle of abuse. But there's really no indication in this episode, like in the canon of this episode, that that's an issue. The pranking was all taken in really good fun by both brothers. Slight worry again about the cruelty of Sam's prank on Ed and Harry, but overall,
well,
they were having a good time. I'm not too concerned about anything that ever really happened. It was a nice break to not have to worry. I got to the mental health check this like in my notes section, and I was like, I just watched that episode and I have nothing really to to worry about. Nothing that I'm like, I need to scream about this right now.
It's not super remarkable.
Yeah, Yeah, in terms of mental health, I was like, I had to really think. And I'm like, I'm coming up with nothing. Sort of like soul transactions, which there were none.
Nope.
That was a very smooth segue. And to finish off this week's episode, we have Line of the Week. So, Meredith, did you have a Line of the Week this week?
Gonna go with Ed. I think it was Ed. Anyway, well, what would Buffy do?
That was pretty good.
It was pretty good. Like, that's something I should say. What would Buffy do?
I had two, and one's serious and one's not. So I'm gonna go with the more serious one first, which was Sam's line at the end of the episode. Kind of makes you wonder of all the things we found and how many existed just because people believed in them.
Such a good line. We could go so far with that.
Yeah, I think that that's something to keep in mind as we see Sam, with these powers and this, potentially, monstrous side of him.
Also, how many people are seen as monsters because people want them to be monsters?
Yeah, exactly. It's the classic Boo Radley of it all. And then my funnier one is, it's more of an exchange of the week. But Jean says, people believe in Santa Claus, how come I'm not getting hooked up every Christmas? And Sam, with no hesitation, just goes, because you're a bad person.
That was amazing. That is another sibling thing.
I love that. So yeah, that was my line of the week. Yeah, Meredith, tell the guests, the listeners, not the guests, the listeners, where they can find you.
I am on Tumblr and Instagram at Shades of Deianira, and if you go there, you'll see lots of drawings for the fantasy novel I'm writing.
I've been KJ. You can find me on all social media platforms at Life Messes of KJ.
Except for TikTok, where you can now find me at SPN Opinions KJ.
If you want to be on the podcast, you can either reach out to me there, or you can reach out through the podcast social media. You can email the podcast. Our email address is supernaturalopinionspodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter at SPN Opinions Pod. We are Supernatural Opinions Podcast on Facebook and at Supernatural Opinions Pod on Instagram. And if you could subscribe and leave us a review wherever you listen to this podcast, that really helps people to find us. And if you want to hear more of me and my thoughts, you can check out my other podcast, Series of Opinions, available on all the same places as this one. This podcast was written, recorded, produced, and edited by me. Thank you to Faith Ebert for our logo. Our theme song is by Joe Veretta. Thank you once again to all of our amazing guests.